Let us take a look at this problem. The backdrop is not extending all the way through, but she has one of her toes on the ground and it has a shadow there as well. We have to use some tricks and techniques of compositing, and that's what we're gonna do in this lesson. So without any further ado, let's get started. The first order of business that makes compositing easier is separating the subject and the background. Let's make two copies of the background by pressing Ctrl or Command J twice. The top one is the subject and the bottom one needs to have just the background. So select the subject layer. You can use the quick selection tool, the object selection tool, or the magic wand tool. With any of those activated, you'll see select subject at the top. Now you can take your time to make a better selection now, or you can improve it later. Let's leave it at that and click on the mask button. Now this layer just has the subject. Now we want another layer with just the background without the subject. So let us select the background layer and let's just name it background without subject. So how do we remove the subject? There are a couple of ways, but to have those ways, we need to make a selection of the subject. So hold the Ctrl or Command and click on the mask right here. We already have a mask, so let's turn that into a selection. Now, since the selection is not covering the entirety of the subject, some areas are missing right there. We need to expand it a bit to make sure that everything is covered. So let's go to Select, Modify, and then Expand. And expanded by 20 pixels. Let's try that. Maybe 20 more pixels we need to do. Let's go to Select, Modify, and Expand. 20 more pixels, hit OK. Now we can fill it with Generative Fill, but Generative Fill has a limited resolution and it might not do such good of a job. You can use the PiXimperfect compositing plugin, and it has a free feature called High-Res Gen Fill, where you can fill little areas box by box automatically. But for right now, you can just fill it with Content Aware Fill. It will do the job just right. Let's go to Edit, Fill, and then Content Aware right here. Hit OK. And it filled it. Press Ctrl or Command D. You cannot see it because you have the subject at the top. Let's turn off the subject and it's pretty awesome. So now we have the subject separate and the background separate. This gives us the flexibility to do a lot of things. However, there's still one problem. How do we fill in this ground area? You have a couple of options. You can select this area and try to fill it with Content Aware Fill, or just stretch it. Up to you. So I'm just going to press Ctrl or Command T and just stretch it all the way through. Hit Enter or Return. Now the ground is pretty much straight. So how do we give it an angle like it's a ground? Maybe you can make a selection like this and press Ctrl or Command T, right click on it, and then it's very tempting to click on Distort and just start stretching like that and do something like that. Hit Enter or Return, Ctrl or Command D, but if you look through it, it just is such a sharp turn. So how do we get to have a smoother turn? First of all, refer to the original one. This is where it needs to turn. So probably I'm guessing we need to make a selection like so. All right. Now let's turn on the background without the subject, and it can help if you place this on a new layer. Now with this selection active, press Ctrl or Command J. Now this is on a separate layer. Let's name this ground. Now how do we get a smoother turn on the ground surface? Simple, just use warp. Now before we apply warp, I recommend going to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters, you know why, so that we can always go back, we don't lose the details. This is now a smart object. Now press Ctrl or Command T, right click on it, and then choose warp. Just stretch the handles like this and have a look at the smooth turn right here. This is so good. Now similarly, you would do that on the other side, like so. Make sure the distances are equal, and then you can also use these handles. Good. Similarly, right here, you can compare the distances so that they're straight. You can also stretch this. Up to you. This is so nice. Hit Enter or Return. See how this looks to you. And anytime you want to adjust it, you can press Ctrl or Command T again, right click on it, choose Warp. You can adjust it anytime. Hit Enter or Return. Let's turn on the subject layer. All we are missing right now is the shadow. So how do we get the shadow? Select the subject layer and just make a copy of it by pressing Ctrl or Command J. So this will be the subject layer and this will be the shadow layer. Now for the shadow layer, let's delete the mask. Delete it. With the help of the lasso tool right here, make a selection of the shadow. You can select a bit extra, that's fine. All right, now click on the mask button. This just needs to have the shadow without any colors. So let's take away the colors first by clicking on the adjustment layer icon and choosing hue saturation. Take down the saturation. We want it to be limited just to the shadow layer, and you can click on this button to create a clipping mask. All right. Now, we just want the shadow, not the rest of the areas. And what is the blend mode which darkens? Multiply. So let's select the shadow layer, changed the blend mode to multiply, but it's also darkening a lot of the other areas. So we need to brighten those areas. So just above the hue saturation adjustment layer, click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose curves. We will brighten the rest of the areas by using this slider, but right now it's affecting everything. We also want it to be limited to the shadow layer. So click on this button and let's take the slider like so. All right, this is good. You can take it further if you wish to, but I'm going to leave it at that. Now let's minimize that. Select the mask of the shadow, take the brush, and with black as the foreground color, just erase the extras. You can decrease the flow if you wish to, but this is just going to work. There you go, it works fantastic. And it looks fantastic. We can work with that. Now to make it more realistic, you can introduce some light on the ground. And how do we do that? Just above the ground layer, let's create one more curves adjustment layer. You can take the slider on the right to the left like so, and then maybe a little bit. With the mask selected, select the gradient, and let's draw a gradient like this. Great. Nice, isn't it? Now if you want a little more brightness, the light is coming from the left hand side, right? So why not create one more curves adjustment layer and take it like so and limit it to this curves. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the line between these two layers. You can also click on that button, and with this mask right here, create another gradient, but this time from this to this. There you go, look at the light. This is so good. Look at it, overall, looking fantastic. Extended. Let me show you the before and after. So here's the before, here's the after, all extended nicely. On top of that, of course, I recommend applying some color grading so that you can bring the elements of the composite together. So you can apply something like color lookup, you know my favorite, crisp warm. I usually apply crisp warm only in the highlights. So double click on the right hand side of this layer and take it away from the shadows by taking the slider of the underlying layer from left to right. Hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart, take it all apart, and there you have a wonderful composite. So that is just one of the ways to easily extend backdrops and create a composite in Photoshop. Photoshop is just a tool with so many features and functions that give you a lot of flexibility. It is you who, as an artist, has to decide the approach on how to fix certain issues. When you look at an issue, you have to think about, what if I stretch it? What if I fill that area? How would I create that shadow? Once you understand the concept, getting to that destination becomes so much easier. So I highly recommend that you understand the concept, and the second most important thing is you experiment. I hope this project gave you a little more insight, but do know that every problem is not going to be the same. I'm very sure, and I absolutely trust that you will be able to do it. I'll see you in the next lesson. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.